On the 8th of March 1934, a massive rainstorm hit the town of York, a small town about 60 or so kilometres inland from Perth. There was, and still is, a train line running through the town, and in some places the train line ran along an artificial embankment. One of the things they have to consider when designing an embankment of this sort is that it has the potential to become a big dam in the event of a flood, and so it's necessary to provide culverts or drains running through the embankment so that the water can drain through gradually instead of rushing over the embankment in a flood. There were culverts in the embankments running through York, but in this case they proved inadequate for the unusually massive rainstorm. The embankment flooded and people's properties were damaged by the rushing water. The question of liability, though, came down to one of causation. The residents had to show that their damage was caused by the negligent failure to provide enough culverts with capacity to disperse the floodwater. The Railways Commission, however, argued that the real problem was that the drains on the downstream side of the embankment were inadequate. So they argued that even if the culverts had allowed all the water through, there would still have been a flood because the drains wouldn't have been able to cope. The problem for the Railways Commission is that even if they were right, in a practical sense nobody got to find out because the culverts didn't allow the water through gradually. There was a flood and the council drains couldn't be expected to cope with that flood. So this was a case where the defendant argued for a novus actus interveniens, a new intervening event, but they lost. Justice McTiernan said, prima facie, the damage done to the respondents was the reasonable and probable result of the default of the constructing authority in the observance of its duty to provide sufficient culverts, and the applicant has not discharged the onus of showing that the damage was due to other intervening causes. What this shows is that once the plaintiff has established a causal link between the negligent act and the harm caused, the burden then falls on the defendant to show the effects of any intervening event which they say should relieve them of responsibility.